Hi everyone, I'm Gautam aka the Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the power of the subconscious mind, healing the body, and much more. Now, before I do so, I'd like to remind you guys I'm available for coaching, so I offer hourly, monthly, email, and DM coaching along with premium coaching right now, which is basically unlimited calls and unlimited DMs. I also have two different Facebook groups. I have a free Facebook group where I upload my YouTube videos in advance, as well as give you guys free resources to use. And I also have a paid Facebook group where I come up live 4 times a month, answer your queries, as well as give you guys exclusive resources to use as well. And I also have a mailing list where I post my articles from time to time, as well as my latest offers for coaching. And last but not least, I also have many different bundles and masterclasses based on manifesting an SP and self concept. So if you guys need any information on any of those things that I mentioned, feel free to email me or DM me via Instagram to figure out what plans may be suitable for you and all the pricing options that are available. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. So what prompted me to make this video was Joseph Murphy's book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I'm about a third into the book. I've read extracts of this book before in the past, but I've never really explored the book as a whole. And I decided to do that, just to learn more about the art of healing, which Joseph Murphy really talks about in this book, and the fact that he too was a student of Abdullah like Neville. So it's really interesting to see how, despite the fact that they learn from the same teachers, the way they interpret and express those teachings are slightly different. So you can kind of get a much more comprehensive view of what Abdullah was trying to teach. Now, mind you, they weren't always, mentored by Abdullah. These were, two individual men who had, completely unique experiences, of course. Joseph Murphy was born in Ireland. Neville was born in Barbados. But, fate, I guess, brought them to New York, which probably why they met Abdullah. And eventually they get to do their own things in life, and they spread these teachings that they learned in their own way. But it's very interesting to see how, despite learning from the same mentor at one point, the way they express these teachings is different, thus giving us, the audience, a more comprehensive view of what the law of assumption really is. So if Neville Goddard's teachings, or if Neville's way of teaching the law of assumption or manifesting as a whole does not resonate with you or doesn't click for you, you can always explore Joseph Murphy's work as well. And I feel like that may give you a much more comprehensive view and a much better understanding of what law of assumption is about. And as I was reading this book, I can already draw parallels to like what Neville says, but Joseph Murphy doesn't use the same type of terminologies. He doesn't quote the Bible as often as Neville did, at least in this book. I'm about 70 pages ish into the book right now. The book is about 200 pages. So even as far about one third into the book, I can tell you right now that Joseph Murphy doesn't really quote the Bible as often as, say, Neville does, which is really interesting. And the way Joseph Murphy starts this book is by talking about his own healing journey, which I understand was one of the reasons why he even got into the world of manifesting in the first place. So basically, he had a skin issue of sorts, and he states that medical therapy had pretty much failed to check the growth, and it was getting progressively worse. So at that point, one of his friends, who was a watchmaker, pretty much tells Joseph Murphy that, hey, if you take a look at this watch right now, this watch had a maker. And the watchmaker, which is me, had to have the idea first in my mind before the watch became an objective reality. And this is the most important part: if the watch was out of order, the watchmaker could fix it. So the friend reminded him that the subconscious intelligence, which is God, universe, the higher power, whatever you want to define it as, which created, the body, is also like the watchmaker who knew how to heal, restore, and direct all vital functions and processes of the body. But, as the person who commands the body, we have to, use our conscious mind to give the subconscious mind the idea of perfect health. So what Joseph Murphy did using this knowledge was as follows, right? Like he says, and I quote, "My body and all its organs were created by the infinite intelligence in my subconscious mind. It knows how to heal me. Its wisdom fashioned all my organs, tissues, muscles, and bones. This infinite healing presence within me is now transforming every atom of my being, making me whole and perfect now. I give thanks for the healing I know is taking place now. Wonderful are the works of the creative intelligence within me. I prayed aloud for 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day, repeating the above simple prayer. In about 3 months, my skin was whole and perfect. So, as you can see, one thing that he did was to say this uh, chunk that I just mentioned for about 5 minutes in the frequency of 2 to 3 times per day. One thing that I always tell my clients is when you guys are affirming, affirm 2 to 3 times a day, so such that it covers the morning, noon, and night. And that's what he did pretty much. And another thing that he would go on to state was he did not have any contradictory thoughts to what he was saying in his affirmations. So he says that, all I did was give life giving patterns of wholeness, beauty, and perfection to my subconscious mind, thereby obliterating the negative images and patterns of thought I lodged in my subconscious mind, which were the cause of all my trouble. Nothing appears on your body except when the mental equivalent is first in your mind, and as you change your mind by drenching it with incessant affirmations, you change your body. This is the basis of all healing. So the most important thing is, he uses the word drenching it with incessant affirmations, which means, saturating the mind with favorable affirmations to drown out the unfavorable thoughts. So this means that once you also start affirming, guys, you do, as the creator of your reality, the responsibility to not think anything unfavorable, because it undoes the progress, right? It cancels out the effects. This also applies not just for healing your body, but for any of your manifestations as well, including manifesting an SP. Like if you start affirming, oh, my SP loves me, he cares for me, and things like that, I don't want you guys to, once you stop affirming, go back into the old story where you think that, oh, my SP is such a jerk, how can he do this, and things like that. That is not going to help your case in any way, and I just wanted to reiterate that here as well. And in this book there are so many different stories. I can't cover all of them in this video, of course, if not it would be forever, but I just wanted to cover a few stories, and particularly one that really kind of caught my eye early in the book was a Protestant minister in Johannesburg, South Africa. He actually healed his cancer, and his method, his technique was very similar to Joseph Murphy's and how he healed his own skin issues. And I felt this particular story was worth covering as well. And he actually wrote it back to Joseph Murphy. So I'm going to read this right now. And he says, and I quote, "Several times a day, I would make certain that I was completely relaxed mentally and physically. I relaxed my body by speaking to it as follows. My feet are relaxed. My ankles are relaxed. My legs are relaxed. My abdominal muscles are relaxed. My heart and lungs are relaxed. My head is relaxed. My whole being is completely relaxed. After about 5 minutes, I would be in a sleepy, drowsy state, and then I affirmed the following truth. The perfection of God is now being expressed through me. The idea of perfect health is now filling my subconscious mind. The image of God has of me is a perfect image, and my subconscious mind recreates my body in perfect accordance with the perfect image held in the mind of God." So he repeats this, again and again and again, and he was able to heal his cancer. His cancer, he had a cancer in his lung, and he was able to repeat this, affirmation. So at first he, started to relax his body, and he started to, say that out loud as well, right? He had to mentally and physically relax himself, which is really important. As you read this book, you'll realize this as well. For any manifestations, even in Neville's stories, one thing you guys will realize is he always sits on like a armchair, and he would just start just relaxing his mind and body, right? When your body is like stationary, when it's not doing anything, it's easy for the mind to just quieten down, and then like it's easy for us to directly talk to the subconscious mind, bypassing all the noise and everything. And for that, you need to really slow down, in other words, right? And so if you are going to do any sort of manifestation technique or anything like that, I would highly suggest that you take maybe 5 to 10 minutes and just relax your mind first, before starting to either visualize or affirm or anything like that, rather than like, doing a straight dive into all these things, because I don't think that that is the most effective way. I mean, you can certainly do it, but especially if you're on your morning commute or something like that, you can just close your eyes, just breathe in and breathe out for like 5-6 minutes, just relax your mind, and then start imagining all the things that you want, because then you are in somewhat of a sleepy drowsy state, and then you can just affirm whatever it is that you want, thereby cementing it into your subconscious mind that much more easily. And this is what he did. So once he was able to relax and get into this kind of sleepy drowsy state, he then started to fill his subconscious mind with the perfection image, and he started to link it with the image of God, right? And he started to say that my image is recreated in the image of God, who is perfect. And he started linking that, and his mind, subconscious mind, took that all in and had to push it out. It had to reflect this fact in the 3D as well, which I thought was really a very smart way of going about it. And one thing that you will realize with like Joseph Murphy's story and this minister's story is that both of them chose to focus on the solution rather than solving the problem. It's very different to focus on problem solving compared to focusing on the solution in and of itself. So whenever you guys are manifesting something rather than solving problems, what I would always suggest that you guys do is focus on the solution. In this minister's case, he had lung cancer, but he didn't focus on healing his lung cancer per se, but he was starting to associate his mind, his image, to the image of perfection, in the eyes of God, basically. So in other words, he was focusing on the solution rather than healing the cancer, because by thinking that, by putting himself in that perspective, he somewhere realized and recognized the idea that he's bringing back his attention to the disease. So he wanted to just focus on fully healing and fully feeling, the perfect health. And so, he, even when he told Joseph Murphy, like, he said, and I quote, told me the method he used to convey the idea of perfect health to his subconscious mind. He didn't talk about healing himself, but he told the subconscious mind the idea of perfect health. And so, this is something that, can go right past you if you are not paying attention. Focus on the solution, not on the problems. And another thing that Joseph Murphy goes on to talk about is the idea of, faith, and why it's the most important thing when it comes to, healing. And, he talks about, this faith process called faith healing, which is basically, healing without a real scientific understanding of the powers and forces involved. In other words, not understanding that it is the subconscious mind that is doing all this healing. So in other words, faith healing refers to, healing through some sort of a religion or a superstitious process that, may be used in a tribe or whatsoever. And so in this type of faith healing, what happens is that a person, maybe like a priest or a shaman, claims that they have a special gift of healing, and the sick person blindly believes them. And so, they go through all the rituals, or they, for example, give them a crystal, or like, splash some water on them, or give them something to drink, and they say that, hey, you are getting better. And so the person's blind faith is what causes this person to heal. Not exactly the customs that's involved in it, but these things are essentially, for lack of a better word, placebos that this person believes that causes them to heal, right? So if anyone probably got healed because of superstition, or because of something that someone gave them or something like that, make no mistake, it was their body which did the healing. But the body did the healing because it believed that whatever that was given to them by this person had the power to heal them. So it was that belief, in other words, faith, that caused them to heal themselves. And he goes on to say, and this is what I really liked, is that he says, and I quote, any method which causes you to move from fear and worry to faith and expectancy will heal. So if you can remove fear and worry, and you move your mind towards faith and expectancy, your body will heal. So faith that your body is healing, that it's all coming together, and that whatever you're doing, or whatever that you're putting in your body right now is indeed healing your body, that's what will happen, because that's how powerful you are. That's how powerful your mind is. You can suggest things to your mind, that and it has to reflect it back to you, and it has no choice but to do that. It is always your faithful servant. The subconscious mind is always your faithful servant, and whatever you tell the subconscious mind, it takes and regurgitates it back to you. So just remind yourself of that. You always, always, always have the power. And he also goes on to talk about subjective faith and what that means. So subjective faith, the word subjective simply, for lack of a better word here, means personalized faith. And the reason why he speaks about subjective faith is that in the previous faith healing, we spoke about how another person is suggesting to the person that, okay, this XYZ thing that we are doing, rituals or whatsoever, is healing you. So another person is suggesting something to this person for them to heal. But in subjective faith, or personalized faith, you are the person who's telling yourself that you are healing, right? It's not a suggestions of another person, but it's rather your own suggestions. So Joseph Murphy talks about it, and I quote, "You'll recall the proposition, which need not be repeated at length, that the subjective or subconscious mind of an individual is as amenable to the control of his own conscious or objective mind as it is by the suggestions of another." So if it can absorb suggestions from another person, it can do the same based on your suggestions as well, is what he says. And he says, and I quote, "It follows that whatever may be your objective belief, if you will assume to have faith actively or passively, your subconscious mind will be controlled by the suggestion and your desire will be fulfilled. The faith required in mental healings is a purely subjective faith, and it is attainable upon the cessation of active opposition on the part of the objective or conscious mind." So he says that, by eliminating any sort of resistance, by just quietening the conscious mind, you're able to, like cement the favorable ideas in your mind that much more. And he also talks about, this, how this isn't necessary if you just go into a drowsy, sleepy state and, you make your subconscious mind that much more receptive to new suggestions, if you will. So this, the sleepy, drowsy state, for those of you who are wondering, if it's not clear at this point, what he refers to is what Neville calls SATs, the state akin to sleep. It's the same thing, again, just a different terminology. So you can kind of see how the way he describes it in terms of terminology might be different from Neville Goddard, but again, rest assured, it's the exact same thing that these two men are talking about. So he goes on to talk about another story, and this is where I wanted to talk about how you can heal another person who's in close proximity to you. Oftentimes, we may have a family member who we would like to heal, but we don't know what to do. This may be, your grandparents or parents or a sibling who you are in close proximity to, and you don't know what to do, when the 3D is kind of showing you, like them kind of going through certain things, which frankly speaking, it can be really heartbreaking, and I'll be the first one to admit it. So how then do you heal someone who's in close proximity to you? And I really wanted to talk about this because I feel like, again, it can be really useful for some of you out there. And so he goes on to talk about this story where this person was healed by a minister. And what he did, long story short, was the minister, just made this guy just cool down because he was kind of agitated in the beginning. So he kind of cooled him down, and he instructed him to say nothing, think of nothing for the time being, right? So if you have a, family member or a friend who you'd like to heal, sit down with them and just tell them to quiet down, and not to say anything or do anything for the time being. Just sit down with you, close your eyes, and just be with you, right? And you guys, the one who is going to take the role of the minister, right? You do the same thing as well. You quieten your mind, right? You just relax your mind as well, and then you start affirming, right? And you don't have to affirm out loud or anything. You can just start affirming quietly in your mind. and you come up with a whole slew of affirmations, right? Similar to the one that maybe Joseph Murphy or the Protestant minister from the previous example had, and you just start repeating this over and over and over again, right? So this this minister here, he said this for about 1.5 hours, and this man has like perfect health, peace, harmony, and wholeness. And what this man felt thereafter was like relief, and he was restored to health shortly thereafter, right? And the reason why we tell whoever is in front of us to kind of like say nothing or do nothing is because we want them to go into that kind of drowsy state. We want them to be more susceptible to suggestions from us, and we directly want it to be cemented into the subconscious mind. And that is why we tell them to just kind of like calm down as well. And he also goes on to say that how the minister who did this treatment was not handicapped by the antagonistic suggestions of the patient arising from doubt of the power of the healer or correctness of the theory. In other words, if your friend or a family member is skeptical about this whole thing, you shouldn't let that affect you and your faith or your power in healing this person, right? Or your belief in healing this person, if you will. It shouldn't affect that at all, if you will. And this is really important to know, because you shouldn't get affected by what the other person says, right? Because they might not understand or recognize the power of manifestations as much as you do. But if it works, it works. And for that to really take into effect, you shouldn't be handicapped by the antagonistic or the suggestions of the patients, right? So whatever that they say, don't get affected by it. Put like a mental barrier right there, and don't take whatever that they say too hard. Your objective at that point must just solely be focused on curing this person or healing this person completely. And again, like, just tell them to quiet down, to say nothing, and make them comfortable, of course. But just tell them not to say anything, and to really empty their mind, if you will. So this is how I would heal someone who's in a close proximity to me. And again, don't be paralyzed by whatever that they say. You just focus on healing them, and just tell them to quiet down your mind. And that's about it, honestly. So the other story is one where he talks about what is called the absent treatment. So in this, if let's say, the person that you would like to heal is very far away from you, who's not even in the same country as you, what do you do then? Here's where the idea of, in what in manifestation we would call everyone is you pushed out and you are the only one with free will concepts come into play here. And essentially what Joseph Murphy talks about here is that he gives an example of this person whose mother was in New York and this girl was in LA. So this girl's mom had what is called coronary thrombosis. I'm probably mispronouncing that, butchering that, whatever she had right now. But anyways, she goes on to say, and I quote, "The healing presence is right where my mother is. Her bodily condition is but a reflection of her thought life, like shadows cast on the screen. I know that in order to change the images on the screen, I must change the projection reel. My mind is the projection reel, and I now project in my own mind the image of wholeness, harmony, and perfect health for my mother. The infinite healing presence which created my mother's body and all her organs is now saturating every atom of her being, and a river of peace flows through every cell of her body. The doctors are divinely guided and directed, and whoever touches my mother is guided to do the right thing. I know that disease has no ultimate reality. If it had, no one could be healed. I now align myself with the infinite principle of love and life, and I know and decree that harmony, health, and peace are now being expressed in my mother's body." So she said this particular affirmation several times a day, and her mother had the most remarkable recovery, after a few days, not weeks, months, but a few days. And, like, this again shows how if you just stick to what you're doing, if you, really have faith in the unseen, if you just believe in the process and just completely just start putting in the idea of wholeness, health, and the again, like, one thing that I really liked in this particular quote is the peace. When you start expressing these types of things and decreeing that, it has no choice but to be reflected in the 3D. And I really like what this girl did, where she says that, like, I know in order to change the images on the screen, I must change the projection reel. My mind is the projection reel. And I love that because, that is true. I agree with that. Our minds are the projection reels. And if we want, to change something in the world, we just simply change it in the mind, and the 3D has no choice but to, reflect that. Right. And the reason why it worked was because of the idea that all of us have only one mind. We are all, one. And what affects one also affects the other. So if we can bring the idea of, health and perfect harmony in our mind, right? The other person whom we are trying to heal has to also be resurrected in the same state of mind that we are in right now as well. So if we are constantly projecting health and harmony and things like that, our, like, mind, and like whatever that we are projecting in it, like, whoever, or in other words, to put it simply, if you are putting someone in the state of perfect health, or if you are putting someone, in the state of abundance, for example, in your mind, they have no choice but to reflect that, because everyone is you pushed out, right? And this is what this is all about, when she talks about how her mind is the projection reel, and how she now is projecting in her own mind the image of wholeness, harmony, and perfect health for her mother. She's just putting her mom in this state of, all the things that she mentioned, therefore, resurrecting her mom as a healthy person, right? So she put her in a state of health, therefore the 3D has no choice but to reflect that. So you can see how, despite the fact that she was in LA and her mom was in New York, that didn't matter, right? That did not matter. She was still able to resurrect her mom in perfect health. And you can do the same for your loved one as well. Distance does not matter, nothing matters, circumstances do not matter. And this is why, it's so important to avoid negative thoughts, to always be solution oriented rather than, being in the problem solving mode. And if you can do that, whatever you like decree into your subconscious mind has to be pushed out, right? You don't have to change anything out in the world. All you really have to do is change your inner world, and the outer shall follow effortlessly. And guys, with that said, we've come to this end of this video. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on the bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. As always, guys, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.